Looks like we're getting people joining. Welcome, everyone. I'll give it a few while people start joining. Awesome. Awesome. And I'm seeing we're getting quite a few participants. So, I think we'll get started. So I want to welcome everyone. This is our webinar series, Skit Talks. I am today's host, Dante Mendez. And today's topic is really about optimizing your collections operations in the era of AI, right? So, during this webinar, we're going to delve into AI's transformative impact on the collections process, right? So, we're going to highlight its efficiencies, how it could deliver better business outcomes. And for the audience, we're going to leave questions at the end. So in the final 10 minutes of the webinar, we'll leave just enough time to kind of answer some of the questions that you have. So everyone could submit their questions in the chat. Now, with us, I have our esteemed panel speaker and guest, Steven Dietz. As a little background for Steve, right? Steve is the CEO of Southwestern Recovery Services, a professional collection agency. Southwest Recovery is a nationally recognized leader in the business process outsourcing space and is headquartered in Dallas, Texas. And we were just talking about his fandom for the Cowboys, right? So any Eagles or Commanders fans out there, just be gentle. Can't say much about you Giants fans, but hopefully we all play nice, right? And just to go on that topic, Southwest has locations all across the U.S. and they spent 20 years building really their expertise across all these industries, right? Now we also have our guest, Ambre. He is the VP of Customer Service at Skit, and is really focusing on multi-channel AI solutions to revolutionize interactions in the debt collections and customer contact center space. Prior to this, he held leadership roles in sales and consulting with companies such as Blackbuck, Oracle, and he's led various projects in McKinsey across the multiple geographies. So welcome, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Now, Steve, I have to ask you, right? So, 30 years in the industry, what do you love most about the industry that you're in?
Nothing. Collections is a very challenging business, Dante, as I'm sure most of the participants in the webinar would admit to. 30 years is a long time. When I started, we were still marketing in the yellow pages. I'll tell a real quick story. 30 years ago, we didn't have the ability to pay for long distance. And so I had a major customer over in the Arlington, Fort Worth area. And I would get up in the morning and drive my kids over to a daycare in Arlington and sit in one of my friends' kitchens and use their rotary dial phone to call all the customers at this tanning salon outfit. And they also had gym memberships. And so I've seen a lot of changes. My first time on the job as a professional, the fax machine was just coming out. I don't want to hear anybody in the chat laughing, but I've seen a lot of things change in those 30 years from the way the telecommunications has evolved, the communications in general has evolved from the email, the texting, and now the most recent challenge to overcome and implement is this AI conversational tool that Skit has put out in the marketplace. And so, while I find the transition to these things kind of daunting as an older guy with gray hairs, it also has helped me really revolutionize the way we do things here from an operational standpoint at Southwest Recovery Services. So, what do they say, Dante? It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, but this is very seriously a great tool, and we're enjoying the relationship that we have with Skit, and we're looking forward to the new iterations as the software evolves and finding new ways to deploy it to help our staff be more successful in their endeavor to collect more money for our clients, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, and me being kind of new to the industry, one thing I've noticed about the industry is kind of the expertise that you need across multiple areas, right? So you got to be kind of like a legal and compliance expert, right? You got to understand, your customers, understand the customer experience. But also you got to be an expert in the contact center technologies, right? And all the
Yeah.
technologies that are unique to the industry. So even me, when I started joining this industry, more on the tech side, right? All these things really pushed me to kind of develop different types of skill sets, if that makes sense.
Well, do you have the skill set of going into the yellow pages and looking up businesses and calling them one by one to ask them to use your services? That's real tech right there, baby.
Well, hey, I'm sure after practicing a bit, you start getting good at that. So,
Yeah, you do.
uh,
Well,
but
listen,
awesome.
I wouldn't
Uh,
change a thing. Full of
yeah,
life's experiences, and it's the season that we're in right now is evolving with the new technologies that are presenting themselves. While they have challenges, they also have many rewards as well. So we're looking forward to the next chapter in Southwest Recovery Services as we evolve through the process of learning, implementing, and
hmm
finding new ways to improve our communication set with our clientele and the debtors that we're trying to communicate with as well.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, just to get started on the topic, really, I want to kind of understand the struggles in the collection industry, right? So, Steve, I want to ask you, what are the kind of key pain points in collections nowadays, and how is AI technology addressing these challenges at a high level?
Well, I can tell you the main reason that we were interested in developing a relationship with Skit.ai was the fact that we were dropping so many inbound phone calls. The regulatory environment has changed, making it more difficult to be able to identify the purpose of the phone call. In addition to that, you've got multiple companies out there trying to take people's money. People think that every phone call that they're receiving, every communication they're receiving is an attempt at a scam. You've got phishing emails, you've got, just the regulatory environment has made it such that the challenge is to get people's attention in that first phone call. And so we would call and leave a message and people would call back and hang up. And we had a very large percentage of the calls were ending up in disconnects or non-connects. Skit.ai has changed that. Uh, we've been able to deploy this to accept all of our inbound calls. And so if the communication bot is not able to reach a conclusion or the individual that is communicating with it wants to speak with a live agent, they have the option to transfer. And we have 5 dedicated people here on the floor that are taking those inbound calls, and we're looking to expand that as we continue to provide Skit with new opportunities to call on our inventory. So
Absolutely.
it's been revolutionary. We're not dropping as many calls. Our drop ratio went from right about 12%, and we're not dropping any more than 1.5% now. So we find that we're answering a lot more inbound phone calls and getting more live transfers to the dedicated collection professionals that work with the incoming customer calls or debtor calls to resolve them and collect more money. So it's been a big help, and we've seen great results after we deployed it.
Right. No, absolutely. And even aside that, just curious, because I've talked to quite a bit of agencies, and um, there's tend to be like different opinions among creditors, right? Some creditors are accepting this technology too, and some are a bit more hesitant, right? They're kind of cautious in the use of this technology. For you, from your experience, kind of what are you seeing from your creditors in regards to the adoption of this technology within your operations?
Well, I was having that conversation with my wife this morning over breakfast, and I really find that it's a generational acceptance.
Hmm
You have a younger generation that has grown up with the cell phone in their hand.
Yeah.
They're more accustomed to dealing with these types of services. When you call into your credit card company or you call into your bank, most likely you're going to go through some type of an automated service. A lot of times when you call to pay a bill now, they offer you a discount to use the automated service. So I think the younger generation is more inclined to use it. The 20 somethings to probably 35, that's just the way things have been. 35 to 55, it's hit or miss. A lot of them still want to talk to somebody. And then you've got older folks like me and the 55 plus generation that we just prefer to speak with somebody. I get very frustrated when I have to push a button and I can't talk to somebody. The great thing about Skit is that it's the best of both worlds. If you're talking with somebody that prefers or would, like the anonymity of speaking to an automated service, then, it has the ability to do that. We've seen a result of that ability to collect more money without having to actually have a live agent touch the call. There are people that would like to speak with an agent, and it seamlessly transfers the call with the information necessary to identify the person on the other end of the line. And the folks seem to like that as well. So, you have the good and the bad, but I think it's a generational as we move more into the next 10, 15 years. Pardon me, I think this will be the industry standard, and everybody will be using this in some fashion to help them be more productive in their collections.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely with all our clients, I think that's one thing that we're seeing, that those efficiency gains, right? Being able to have more productive agents, and also in general having, agents handle more complex conversations, right? Let the simpler stuff get kind of managed by the virtual agent, and then the more complex stuff, right? Let that stuff go to live agents. And like you mentioned, there is kind of, different demographics of people who are more accepting of technology, others who just want to talk to live agents, and the technology itself should serve that purpose, right? Make it simple
It
to
does.
kind of have that transfer, have that engagement sent off to like a live agent if a consumer requires. Um, Now, Amit, right? So there has been advancements in the technology, right? Especially in the last year. We used to have more, typical classification models. There's the large language models. Voices are becoming more lifelike, right? So on that topic, how do you think these new technologies are kind of also assisting in addressing the challenges that we see?
Sure. I think Steven did speak a bit about the challenges, I think, on
Right.
Southwest recovery front, right? Which was more in terms of the ability
Yeah.
to do calls. I think I might stretch it a bit more, and maybe it's not an problem for Steven considering he runs an awesome set of operations. But what I've
Right.
heard from other clients in certain geographies is it's even difficult to kind of hire agents, right? And there are people who have even resorted to outsourcing, but I think when it comes to outsourcing, kind of maintaining the quality, especially for some of the small and medium size kind of the agencies, is a different hassle altogether, right? If you're a big one, then you can obviously kind of set up your own operations, kind of have the training in place. But then if you're a small or medium agency, kind of maintaining the quality of outsourcing is a lot of effort, right? And I think in light of this, it probably makes more sense to kind of figure out ways by which you can do more with less. And I think that's where kind of AI also helps, right? So beyond kind of ensuring that
Mhm.
have a good customer experience in terms of having a around the clock availability, also ensuring that as you rightly said, some of the easier things can be done by the agents, by the AI, and you can leave the harder things, or you can leave the harder calls to the agents, and you can manage with even lesser number of those. I
Right.
think beyond that, I also wanted to kind of talk a bit in terms of the fact that collections, especially third party collections, it's an heavily regulated, highly compliant kind of an industry, right? And while obviously, a lot of the agencies spend quite a bit of efforts in terms of training the agents, I think with an AI-driven model, it's much easier, right? Because effectively, there is no way it's going to deviate from the script, because it's effectively something which is kind of fed in, and just makes it easier for you to kind of ensure that there is at least no deviation from a script perspective, from a compliance perspective, as far as the script is concerned, right? And there is kind of a greater kind of a adherence to what is expected. So I think that also kind of ensures that some of the challenges in terms of kind of monitoring, etc., go away. And while we are talking about voice bots and kind of augmenting agents, I think the good part about AI is it's not just restricted to a particular channel, right? So you are using it right now. I think if I talk about Steven Southwest, I think they've already started exploring AI on SMS, right? On text, right? I think
Yes.
we have certain clients who are even using it on email. Beyond that, I think there are options where you can use some of the AI to kind of figure out and propensity models, and kind of figuring out what is the best time to call certain people, what should be ideally you can run A/B experiments very easily. So you can figure out, kind of the demographic thing which we talked about, generational thing which we talked about, kind of figuring out which is the kind of demography which, reacts well to a particular message, which is a bit more difficult to pull off with an agent because you'll kind of have to go through the training loop, which might take a time. So there are some of those flexibility as well as monitoring kind of advantages, which are also challenges which agencies are dealing with, which can also be something where, technologies like AI can be leveraged beyond obviously the optimization bit, which we kind of discussed earlier.
Right. No, absolutely. Those are all fair points, right? Especially from a compliance perspective. I think that's one thing a lot of concern is, right? How compliant is it, especially in regards to a live agent, right? And we know based on what we're seeing on performance, on metrics that we've captured, the bot itself tends to be more compliant. In some cases, even than a live agent, right? So it does have that ability to kind of be intelligent enough to understand the compliances, right? And oftentimes better in some cases than a human. Now, and kind of talking on that, going on that topic, right? So, aside from compliance, and this might be more of a question for you, Amit, what are some, security mechanisms, some things to think about when it comes to protecting kind of, a consumer data, right? So what are some mechanisms there that we could implement to protect the consumer data?
No, I think that's something which has to be kind of it's extremely important, right? Because
Right,
at the end of the day, I think you are dealing with personal data, right? So effectively ensuring that you have kind of the right encryption mechanisms
right,
in place, and this is not just for the data storage part, but also data in motion or data which is kind of exchange. So having kind of that encryption layer and encryption mechanism across the whole process, I think becomes very important. So effectively being PCI DSS compliant is like a no-brainer, right? It's something
right,
which has to be in place for any technology which kind of deals with this kind of a data. Beyond
right,
that, in the sense you are also kind of dealing, because you all have bots which are kind of processing payments end to end, right? So
right.
effectively, you need to kind of ensure that, some of the payment data, etc., is being redacted. It's not being stored anywhere. Some of the conversations which are kind of which are dealing with some of this payment information are redacted and they are not accessible. You have right control mechanisms internally to kind of ensure that, nobody internally
Yeah,
has access to either conversations or transcripts which are not meant to be accessed. But at the same time, for example, you need some way by which you can maintain, can
right.
go back and analyze in terms of what happened in that particular conversation. So kind of also ensuring that, those encrypted storages are in place so that for the next 3 years, 5 years, depending on whatever
Hmm.
the creditor or the agency or the state requirements are, you are kind of storing the data so that, you can go back and access it and kind of figure out, what exactly happened during the course of the call as well.
Right, absolutely.
So
And
I feel
mhm.
like, in a sense, sorry for cutting you,
Oh no,
like,
you're good,
but
you're good.
I feel AI has to be built on top of security and compliance. So I
Yeah,
feel security and compliance is kind of the base layer, right? So probably that's probably the first place to start off, and then obviously AI will continue to evolve. And I think this is also going to be a journey, because as AI evolves, right, and this technology evolves, there will be additional challenges which are
yeah,
going to come to the fore when it comes to both security as well as compliance as well. So some of those things also need to be constantly kind of relooked at regular intervals, and kind of being evaluated from a fresh lens to figure out if the earlier expectations are in sync with where the state of the industry is.
no, absolutely. I mean, there's been so many rulings even the last year that AI companies like ourselves, we have to kind of update and keep evolving with, right? So absolutely. And Steve, I'm guessing that's kind of also what you're looking into when, especially when you looked at Skit or even any AI technology, right? The compliance to the industry. Um, any sort of regulations that it follows, any certifications that the company has had, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure that's yeah. Go
most
ahead.
definitely. Yeah,
Mm,
most definitely. I believe when we were working through the process and steps to get signed up with AI, that there was a precedent or a new ruling that came down. I'm not sure if I'm quoting this properly, that it might have been with the CFPB or it could have been a court case, and it delayed the implementation of the software or the program because Skit had to make a change internally to maintain the compliance part of their software, and so there was a delay when we got started. But yeah, we've been very happy with that, and we understand that compliance is important, and feel very comfortable that Skit is on top of any new regulations or precedents or rulings from the CFPB to keep the software and the service as up to date as possible, because everybody knows that you're just one step away from having a big problem if you're not monitoring and staying compliant in today's litigious environment.
No, absolutely. And also, I'm just curious. So from your creditor's perspective, are they also, when it comes to the compliance, the type of technology you want to utilize from an AI perspective, are they also heavily involved from that perspective, where they want you to only onboard folks who, let's say, have the certifications in place, have the compliance in place, or is that more kind of up to you, right, when it comes to deciding the AI technology that you want to utilize and how to utilize it with your consumers?
Yeah, most of the companies that we deal with in the mid-market area or mid-market companies pretty much leave it up to us in terms of who we're using. We've had a few that are scrutinized, and we've had to add or subtract particular vendors as a result of that. But for the most part, they rely upon us. We're identifying them, and they're identifying us. So we're making sure that the scrutiny that we put on any vendor that we're using is quite high. And Skit has met all those, met and surpassed all of the expectations that we've had as a result of the intense intense effort that they place on their compliance component of their service. So we've been very happy with that, competent, and I don't have anybody that we do business with anyway that has questioned any of the capabilities or any of the compliance issues regarding using the AI as a tool.
Right, absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's always a critical part too, right? Making sure not only is the agency, happy with the level of compliance, but your creditors too, right? Because ultimately, their creditors is your own client, right? And they have to also be comfortable with the technology. Now, kind of pivoting over to kind of more a specific use case, right? And Steve, you might have already shared this and I talked about it, but more generally speaking, right? How much of your AI, how much of your operations is AI, right? And kind of what are the current applications of AI within your collections use case?
Well, we are, if I had to put a number on it, Dante, I'd say we're using it for about 1/3 of the inventory that we onboard on a monthly basis and a historical basis. We wanted to make sure that we had a really good handle on the test use to make sure that there were no holes in the platform or no concerns. So we have not transitioned into using it 100%. We're about 1/3 of the inventory. We have found that in that 1/3 test case scenario that we're seeing a deeper penetration into the inventory, a better return on the cash flow that Skit is helping us generate with using it. So we've been happy with that thus far. We've got ongoing conversations to implement a couple changes in the programming to be able to onboard more. The idea by the first of next year is to move into at least 1/2 of the current inventory being used. We've been going back and forth and looking at some markers in the metrics and have found some sweet spots that we feel like if we concentrated on those more, that it would be even more successful. One of the things that Skit has come out with within the last, I don't know, Emmett, I might be wrong, but 6 months or so, we've been utilizing the SMS to text. And we had a meeting the other day and found that there were some areas that we could concentrate on. We plan on uploading about 250,000 more cases that we want to concentrate specifically on the SMS protocol. because we feel like that we found some metrics in that arena that would be highly useful in the communication with the SMS. So I'm hoping that by first quarter for sure, that we have moved transition from 1/3 of the inventory to half of the inventory that we currently service here.
Absolutely. No, yeah, and the expansion of these different channels is also very critical, even for you, right? In terms of making sure we tackle more of your portfolio, right? Using these different channels, and maybe this question is more for you, Amit. Really, how can AI unify the collections effort across these various channels, right? So voice, SMS, chat, and email to help improve that communication with debtors.
So I think the first question, I think, which I'll like to answer is, why do we need so many channels, right? Because
Right.
we talked about kind of different users, different end customers kind of reacting differently to different varieties of outreaches, and the same applies to channels as well, right? So you might have, the younger generation was probably much more comfortable replying back on text and being much more comfortable being async in terms of responding to the communication, and you might have, some of the slightly senior generation who might be much more comfortable with voice. So I think
Right.
it's very important that you give those options to the customers and you kind of meet them where they are, rather than try to impose a particular channel on them, right? And that's why, I think initially we started with voice, but quickly we realize, it has to be, we have to reach them across multiple channels to kind of ensure that, the options are available. I think the second thing is also voice comes with certain limitations. Like, for example, like, typically the connectivity rates, which we have seen, even in best cases is kind of 10 to 12%, right? I think so there is definitely around 85 to 90% of the callers in a particular campaign, which you are not able to necessarily reach in one go. So rather than kind of, leaving them off the table, it makes more sense to kind of figure out if there are other channels which you can reach them out to, right? And kind of ensure that, you can bring that connectivity level for that lead base much up. I think the third reason also is people may not be in a position to take decisions right away, right? When you're reaching them on voice, you might be putting them on spot in terms of their ability to kind of pay certain things. It might also be possible that you're reaching to them and then you need some other way by kind of giving them reminders, right? And it might be better that, you might reach them on voice, but maybe give them reminders on
Right.
SMS or on email, or in certain cases you might send them SMS so that they can take their own with payment links pointed to the portal, so that they can take their own time in terms of financially being in a position to kind of clear out the dues, right? So I think it's more about flexibility, and it's more about kind of giving the optionality to customers. I think the third thing which I wanted to talk about email, and the reason I wanted to talk about email
Mm-hmm.
is it's something which is, I think, has just started picking up in the third party business. I think obviously there are certain challenges in terms of not being and not having enough email IDs for customers out there. But I think we have started seeing agencies who are moving away from the letters, because I think the physical letters have started becoming quite expensive, right? It's almost $1 for kind of sending out a
Yeah.
letter. So we have started seeing people who are kind of moving to email and using email to kind of reach out to the debtors rather than the letter. And I think
Right.
what we realize is, the intention of the letter is to get back a response. So why wait for the customer to kind of call back? And, rather, if we can give an option where they can even respond back on an email, and you can have AI on the email who can kind of process some of their queries, as well as, take the payments if the customer has an intention to pay. So that's another third channel which has not been explored enough, but definitely there is potential. And I understand there are some questions which people do have in terms of compliance, etc. And I think that is something which we can jointly figure out. And there are enough agencies whom we work with who have started figuring that out as well. So I feel, across these three channels, if we kind of use it, we get multiple options to reach the user, which kind of ensures that you have a better chances of connecting with them. And it also gives great flexibility to the user to kind of respond back at whatever
Right.
time they feel and in whatever channel they choose.
Right. No, absolutely. We could really use those insights to kind of refine the strategy, right? So if we're noticing, certain folks are are more likely to engage with voice than, let's say, SMS, or certain types of accounts are more likely to engage with one type of channel versus the other. Then you can start tailoring your strategy to, reach out to these consumers based on those insights that you capture, right? And I think that's a critical part of this, right? We want to be data driven when it comes to seeing, okay, what channels work best with what consumers. So Amit, right? So what are some of those KPIs that we should be looking into in terms of knowing what channels to kind of reach out to consumers and how to maximize that engagement? Is there any sort of KPIs or metrics that you think are kind of important to that?
I think, to be honest, it kind of is similar across. Like you can probably
Yeah.
give, but I feel, when it comes to voice, I think connectivity rates is probably, kind of, I'll say, the top of the funnel kind of a metric, because it kind of determines how does the rest of the funnel kind of look in terms of right party contacts, in terms of, promise to pays, and then the final payments. I think if you look at the SMS, it's kind of similar. The only difference is
Right.
you will call it, rather than connectivity, you'll call it the response rate, right?
Right.
So kind of figuring out what those response rates are. And over there, as I said, I think, and that's a good thing about technology, that it's important to run A/B experiments, right? Because you will figure out that for different creditors, they will have different end customers, and the way they will respond, the times at which they will respond,
Hmm.
the kind of channels that they will respond to, the kind of messaging that they will respond to, it will tend to vary, right?
Right.
So I think
Right.
it's kind of, kind of running those experiments, figuring out, how are those response rates, connectivity rates, kind of, as well as, PTPs and RPCs varying with respect to the messaging, with respect to the times, with respect to, kind of the channels, and then figuring out, as Steven said, the sweet spot, right? And
Right.
that's why I think it's also sometimes important to probably start early, because you might start seeing some gains right away, but I think the real gains come when we start analyzing the data, right?
Right.
Because you realize, it may not work for the entire 100% of your portfolio, but there's like a 20-30% sweet spot where, probably the AI might be much more profitable for you, and much more kind of impactful for you than, kind of processing through the agent. So I think it's kind of figuring out what that sweet spot is, and then leveraging the
Right.
technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Steve, even for you, kind of when it comes to those metrics and KPIs, what has been your experience? How are you evaluating the technology?
Well, I can tell you that Amit is on target there. We
Hmm.
additionally saw a huge return and rapid gains with the technology, but then we hit a wall. We were sending out, similar communications to the same people. It only takes a certain handful of people to mark a number as spam. If
Yeah.
you get a, spam likely on your cell phone, you don't take the call. So we really had to start picking apart the data that was being provided to us and find ways to supplement that data into adjusting the campaigns in terms of
Yeah.
when we call. We're now looking, as I mentioned earlier, into the generations by looking at dates of birth and kind of picking and choosing which medium that we use. To piggyback on what Amit pointed out about the email, the regulatory is they made some regulatory changes about mail that could be sent out. There can't be anything on the outside of your envelope that makes it appear as if it's from a collection agency. And I don't know
Hmm.
how it works in your house, but in my house, when I get home, the first thing I do is go through the mail. It's sitting on the table, and if it looks like junk, it goes in the trash. And anything that doesn't have any identifying information on it, I perceive as junk. So
Hmm.
the ability to be able to communicate through these multiple channels has helped our business get through the barriers that exist with people. You have emails that go to spam, then, you're seeing that based on the KPI
Right.
metric information that you're getting back, then, you try to concentrate on text. If you're
Right.
not getting, any open rate on the email or the text communications, then, you try voice. So we've really been trying to segment how we go about sending the information in the batches that we send to Skit. Once we started doing that, we saw a remarkable increase, and we plateaued and leveled out in terms of now it's about how many more accounts do we send them to start achieving, those upward gains again. So Amit hit the nail on the head when it comes to these the KPIs based on the information that you extract from the data they give you back. It took us a while to kind of identify that and build some reporting features and segment communication in the information that we were sending to them. But once we did that, we came out of that stall that we were in, and we started, seeing gains again. So he was right on target with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just kind of pivoting a bit. More particular to your kind of use case, your deployment, right? What changes have you done to handle kind of the volume of calls being transferred to your agents from the bot, right? Has it had an impact on your productivity or?
It has. Yeah, we had to dedicate a department to handling the inbound live call transfers. We have a staff that sits in the front line, but answers all these inbound phone calls. We have people that are in line or making recommendations or requests to HR to transfer out of other departments to get into this department because it has been so successful. The rate of money or the amount of money that the folks in this particular department have been able to collect was 4 times, in some cases 5 times what the other agents were collecting. So it's made a big impact. I mean, we went from agents running 20, they were running 6 to 8 in fee to now they're running 25 to 30 in fee. So if that's the type of results an agency owner would like to see, then Skit got the job done. But yeah, we had to make changes in departments. We had to separate and implement a new department to handle this the inbound call transfers. So it's made a huge impact on the business. Those people in that department are very happy, and some of the other agents on the floor are a little jealous, and they're putting in for transfers to that department. So we're looking forward to the future. 2025 is going to be a great year.
Absolutely. No, and yeah, I mean, delving deeper into that topic, right? So, can there be a synergy between, AI and human collectors? And it sounds like from your, experience, but I'd like to kind of, for you to kind of elaborate a little bit more, right? Can really AI augment the work of human agents by providing the real-time insights to them?
Yeah, I believe that it can. There's a space in any agency for both. I don't think the AI is the end all solution to it.
Yep.
You have to have live agents because again, not everybody feels comfortable dealing with the voice bot. I don't know if you've ever seen your mom or your dad or maybe a grandparent that's on the phone with the voice bot and they just start doing this because they want to talk to a live agent. But the struggle is real. And so what we have been able to achieve through the synergy is having the live agents there for the transfers for the folks that want to talk to somebody. The information from the call is available so that we have an idea of what was transpiring, in the bot transfer to the live agent, so they're not having to ask redundant questions. And then the reporting is where we really have hit a sweet spot because a lot of folks will respond with the bot, set up payment plans for future, ask for callbacks, ask for follow-ups. Once we were able to get our hands around that information and use it in such a way that we could forward that information for future contact to the live agents, that made a huge impact as well. So yes, there's definitely synergy. It's not an end-all solution. You're not going to be able to run your agency on this by itself. But if you augment this technology for your live agents, in our case study anyway, we saw remarkable returns.
Absolutely.
And just to add to that, right, I don't think we will ever come to the stage where AI will completely replace humans in collections, at least, right? I think it will definitely, there might be a case in customer experience or, more of the support kind of activities where it might be because that's it's more of a logical thing where you are asking a question and getting an answer. Collections, unfortunately, also has an emotional or a human aspect to it, right?
Exactly.
Where you need to convince the person at the other end to part with his hard-earned money, right? And it's not easy. So I feel AI is always going to be, something where, some of those low-hanging fruits you can quickly garner. right? And, kind of ensure that you're using your agents for something which is much more difficult. And as Stephen rightly mentioned, more of this context gathering for some of those things as well. So before you want to send the agent in to kind of engage a client, if there is some context which the AI can gather and kind of, pass it on to the agent, I think it can make the conversation much more productive and, much more kind
Yeah.
of outcome based, right? Rather than kind of just going all blank in.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's one thing that I've also frequently get asked on too, in terms of, all right, what should the bot be handling, right? And what should the human agents handle, right? And so I know, Amit, you've kind of worked with tons of different, deployments and clients. From your experience, what are some scenarios where it might make more sense, for AI to handle and more for those, human agents to handle?
Yeah. So I think the way to look at it is, typically the whole collection process is a journey, right?
Yeah.
Now, there are certain kind of, maybe if it's a smaller debt or if it's more of a, kind of a simpler transaction, etc., you don't possibly need to get into those really complex negotiations, etc.
Right.
Right? Simple negotiations, simple options, if you kind of give it to the customer, I think they are ready to kind of utilize them and kind of process the debt, right? I think that's something definitely where AI can play a huge part. I think the second thing is inbound calls, right? Where you have sent a letter and the customer is calling with an intent to pay, right? So effectively, that's where, you actually don't want to waste a agent's time and energy in something which is already, the customer is calling in with an intent and calling in with the money, right? So effectively, those are the things where, you can just kind of save both agent times as well as, kind of the commission sharing or something which some of the agencies might have, and you can have the bot completely tackle it. I think the other part, even in some of the complex transactions, there is an authentication bit. There is effectively, I think there is a need to figure out if you are reaching the right contact, right? The RP, or what we call in the industry as RPC, right? I think that is something which an bot can really help with. So rather than, kind of calling out to 100 leads and effectively connecting to 10% of those, and within those, probably having right party contacts with just 2 or 3% of those, effectively you get all of those, that funnel to be driven by the bot. And those 2-3% effectively are then transferred to the agent. So your agents are having more productive conversations per hour than what they might have been having earlier. So even for some of those complex deals, even for some of the larger debts, etc., effectively there is some time and productivity gains which can be driven through the bot as well, right? So the bot may not be in a position to an end-to-end kind of a transaction there, but there's definitely a bit of optimization which it can do. So I feel those are kind of those three scenarios in which the AI
Yeah.
can be used in the first two cases completely, and in the third case kind of in sync with the agent.
No, yeah, absolutely. And also when it comes to even figure out those use cases, right? The good thing about this technology is you could always kind of crawl, walk, and run, right? So m- in the beginning, you might not need the bot to, especially when you're just getting started, right? Handle those maybe more complicated scenarios, right? Maybe you don't want the bot to do the negotiation, but maybe grabbing the simple payments, for example, might make sense, right? And maybe once you start seeing the gains or the capabilities of the bot, it might make more sense to have it kind of expand on its use case, expand on its capabilities. So I think one thing that I've seen a lot is agencies and the agencies that I work with utilize this technology as kind of this crawl, walk, run approach to, and then from there also figure out what makes sense to escalate to an agent, right? When maybe the conversation starts getting, more complex, consumers might get more upset. Maybe for those, just transfer the call over to a live agent, right? Whereas the more simpler stuff, maybe the bot's authenticating, right? Start off with the bot just handling that type of work. So it's definitely an exercise that all agencies kind of have to do to figure out, okay, what makes sense for the bot to handle, the virtual agent, versus a human agent. And on top of that, I guess, Steve, how have your live agents kind of reacted to this technology? What is their feel on this technology? Have they been accepting, or kind of what what from your experience, how have they kind of thought of this technology?
Pardon me. Well, to be honest, when we got started, it was a little at arm's length.
Hmm.
Nobody really knew what to expect. How well, what's the company doing? Are they replacing me? that type of a thing, which is always, you know, a challenge when you're trying to, you know, maintain harmony amongst the staff. However, once we were able to work out some of the details that were challenges in the very beginning, I'd say within the first 3 months, we were going through you know, that crawl, walk, run stage. Once we get into, you know, the 6-month stage of this, we kind of had all the reporting, feeding back the KPI data. We had lots of use case that we were able to refine. Those people in that department started to see an uptick and revenues that they were collecting, and thus, you know, relatability to the uptick in their paychecks. So it was a little bit of a challenge in the beginning, but once we were able to kind of tune it in and get it to do what we were looking for it to do, easy transition, because that department is easily out collecting some of the top tier collectors that we have on the floor. As I mentioned, there's a little bit of scuttle, but about the others wanting to transfer into that department, because what we have found is that you either have somebody that has already authenticated themselves in the system, that live party transfer is made very seamlessly, or you have somebody that's reluctant and they don't want to give out their information, and you need that call to be transferred to a live agent, so that live agent can then kind of provide some you know, comfort, if you will, and they can talk them off the ledge. You know, I've always said in this business that collections is sales in reverse. These folks have bought something or they've used a service from your customer. Our job or the end goal for people that work with me and my company is to sell them into paying or providing some type of repayment terms, so that we can do, you know, provide that service to our client. And you don't do that by, you know, being aggressive. You don't do that by, so once those people have transferred to that live agent, we're able to kind of talk them off the ledge, give them some additional information that provides a level of comfort for them to continue on with the conversation. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, we have gone from relatively high, industry high calls that were being dropped in the transfer to virtually none. I mean, 1.5%, you know, sub 2% call drops is for our company anyway, is a remarkable change. So they were reluctant, but now not so much. Now people are, you know, looking at the numbers that they're putting up in the commissions each month, and they're more apt to want to work with the technology. So you know, it was choppy at first. I will admit that, but now that we've refined it, it's working much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I always like to ask, so, you know, whenever I do like a product demo and the bot starts handling, let's say, negotiations and installing, setting up, let's say, installment plans with the consumer, a lot of agencies get impressed, right? Because it's not something that you really expect from this technology, right? But Steve, from your experience, you know, what is something that's really impressed you about the conversational AI and its features and its functionality?
Dante, it shows up to work every day. Never late.
Good point.
You know, there are challenges to any business, whether it be a coffee shop, a donut shop, or a collection agency. And you know, employees, the HR part of it is always going to be the largest challenge. You know, we were very impressed with it based on the conversations that it's capable of having. You know, it's not intuitive. It's not. It does not have the ability to pivot like a live person does, but it handles the mundane. It handles the smaller payments. Most of the actual payments that it takes over the phone through the credit card platform that we utilize are smaller. But you know, to that vein, or to that, you know, it takes away time for live agents to be processing those smaller payments. And so, you know, we were really impressed with its ability to, you know, converse back and forth. And, you know, there were some challenges in the beginning about voicemails, connecting to voicemails and things of that nature. So, but we've been happy with the evolution. And, you know, you're talking to a guy that, you know, showed up to work one day and there was a fax machine. He had to ask somebody how to use it. You know, this type of technology is revolutionary. You know, I think, you know, 20 years from now, it will have evolved to a point where, you know, it's probably maybe 60-70% of the agency's frontline collectors, because it learns, and
Right.
it has this ability to pick up inflections and learn
Right.
from the conversation that's happening. I think it's really going to be a unique tool, and most agencies will be happy to know that it shows up on time. It's never late. I haven't had one. I haven't had one TWC or any unemployment claims as a result of it not showing up to work.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's the nice thing, right? It won't call out if it's had a rough night before or went
Mm-mm.
out and about the night before, won't call out because it's hungover or anything like that,
Right.
right?
No, I haven't had anybody call in sick yet.
Absolutely. And kind of going earlier, we kind of touched upon this, but you've been an early adopter, right? But there's kind of agency owners out there that kind of fear the implementation of AI, right? So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the fears are understandably, it's a new
Mhm.
technology. Uh, but I will say this, in the famous words of Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. And so as this technology evolves, I think, the adoption of it is going to become more routine. It's going to become more acceptable, and more widely used. I certainly have seen remarkable changes in not only the interaction between phone calls, the frontline people that use it, and it is an ever evolving tool. So where we're at today is not where we're going to be, and so the sooner that you can learn to become comfortable with it and go through the progressions of learning how to use the data that it generates, and how to implement and refine that data and get it chewed up and spit back into your collection CRM, the further along you'll be. We've been using this service now for what, a minute, close to a year now, a little over a year, and we're just now kind of hitting that sweet spot where we're on the ground running with it, and it's making a difference. So the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take you to realize that this is a beneficial tool that can help your agency grow.
Right, absolutely. And that's one thing too that I think a lot of folks have concerns, especially when we're having conversations with them, is the integration of the technology, right? And I think what we've done is made it flexible to a point where there's multiple ways we could get it up and running and integrating, whether it's integrations to CRMs or use of flat files even in some cases, right?
Yeah,
So
that's how
yeah,
we started before we
yeah.
were able to connect with an API.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think maybe you could elaborate a little bit on it, right? So, how critical does that play into the implementation of AI using kind of different methods of integrations?
No, definitely. I think AI thrives on data, and if you
Right.
want to use data, you need an integration in place.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, effectively, when, as Dante and Steven mentioned, when we initially started, we wanted something which was quick off the ground, without kind of making the clients go through the hassle of kind of speaking with different integration partners, etc. So we started with the flat file approach, but the good part is I think we have been around for, I think it's almost been 2.5 years in the industry, and now I think we have we have partnerships with multiple partners, both on the system of record / CRM space as well as on payment gateways. I think we are integrated with almost 10 plus payment gateways. We are also integrated with multiple CRM partners. We are also kind of working very closely with multiple telephony vendors as well, right? So effectively, I think most likely, whoever you are working with, there is a good chance that we are already integrated with them. And if the integration is in place already, then it's just about kind of getting your credentials, putting them in, and setting up the automation. But just in case if there's a chance that you're working with somebody who either because of certain reasons is difficult to integrate with, or we don't have the integration yet, I think we have other options, right? We have something what we call as a middleware approach, where it's kind of an SFTP based approach, but with much more regular kind of file syncing, which we
Okay.
can kind of set up to kind of ensure that the data exchange is still in place and keeps on happening at regular intervals. I think thirdly, we have also come up with, and this is something which I've implemented for one of our clients, which we call as RP, or robotic process automation, where we kind of set up an instance of Skit, very similar to how you will set up an agent instance with your CRM. And we kind of run a RPA tool on top of it, so that effectively the whole data exchange happens through that machine, which is on your premises, very similar to how you will do it for any regular agent. So I think that's kind of a real
Yeah.
example of AI being another agent, right? And then using technology to kind of even set up the data exchange mechanism, even if there is a difficulty in terms of setting up a API-based integration. So I think those are the options out there, and I feel let not integration be a difficulty,
Yeah.
or rather kind of a limitation preventing you from leveraging this technology. I think I'll probably say that's the easiest part to solve. And I think thankfully now we have multiple options by which we can execute it, and we'll work closely with you and your vendor to kind of get it done. I think the real challenge, as Steven said, is kind of really figuring out your sweet spot with respect to the technology. And for that, I think you need both time as well as certain amount of data, right? Getting processed through the tool before you can make that decision. So I think the faster you kind of implement AI, the better chances that maybe a year down the line or even 6 months down the line, you will be in a position where you would have figured out where exactly to use it.
Absolutely. And it reminds me, I think I read an article a while back on the implementation and adoption of AI, and it's the folks who have used AI the longest that have seen the most benefit, right? So, once you're up and integrated, right, it might take some time, right? But more importantly, also once you're up and running, you get those insights, you start learning, and then you could grow from there, which I found very interesting. It just popped up into my head right now. Um, but with that said, so I know we're talking about Steve, you being an early adopter, right? So do you also think it's kind of giving you maybe a competitive advantage over, let's say, other agencies, or what are kind of your opinions on that, at least?
Well, I will say this, as far as being able to scale up, yes, we're definitely in an advantageous situation. Should we bring on a large volume client that has tens of thousands of accounts to call through, we do not have to avoid or to ignore those accounts. As far as the inventory goes, we can load those directly into the Skit service and make those phone calls. We have not found a case study where it has not been able to get through hundreds of thousands of records that we load to it daily and not make those phone calls. So, I definitely know that we have a competitive advantage over some of the companies out there, that if they were able to bring in a big market client that would give you 10 or 15,000 accounts to call, you'd have to staff. And the hiring process is difficult. The training process is long and arduous. And you may not have the ability to keep that opportunity in front of you if you're not providing adequate reporting on penetration of that inventory through collection efforts. So I definitely have an advantage there, because we have not found a time that if we've loaded 150, 200, 250,000 records into the technology, that hasn't been able to get through that in a day. And try doing that with a standard dialer platform that's going through and connecting calls to a live agent. You just can't do that. So yeah, definitely that is a leg up.
Absolutely. And now for the last question, and this is for you, Steve, right? So, you're up and running on the technology. It's been about a year now, right? So what are some of the key lessons you've learned from the implementation of this technology?
There have been many. Key lessons are, don't ignore the loop data, the feedback loop of information. We kind of put this on autopilot, set it and forget it, the old Romco commercial. And that was a huge mistake, because the insights that you gain through the utilization of that data is remarkable. I've seen a huge increase in both response time, money collected, customer satisfaction in terms of revenue recovery. The frustration on my part was ignorance, because I was not as deeply involved as I should have been, and did not have a clear understanding of what type of metrics are being provided in the file returns at the end of each day. I would recommend highly that if you deploy this type of a technology, that you get your arms around the return data, the metric data that you're getting on a daily basis, because then at that point you're able to set flags, you're able to set reminders, you're able to set promises, you're able to set all sorts of things depending on the capabilities of your CRM. That was definitely a frustration, was not knowing to the extent what we should be doing with that return matrix. Skit.ai is definitely not ROM code. You can't set it and forget it.
Right. No, for sure. It's definitely an ongoing thing, and those insights that are provided by the technology are something that should be reviewed, right, and act upon. But
yeah, I will say this though, from the implementation standpoint,
yeah,
they were wonderful. I am not the most technical individual. I have some, highly qualified technology professionals here, but there at no time did we not run into a roadblock where we were not able to find a solution to the implementation. It was painless. It was seamless. I've gone through several variations of software and vendor connections and things of that nature, and it was fairly seamless from our standpoint. Skit was very flexible in working with us in our challenges, responsive to challenges that we provided them for result-oriented metrics that we needed, and have been real happy with not only the results but with the company as a whole. They get back with you. There's not a lot of back and forth with regards to requests. If you have something that needs to be done, somebody at Skit will get back with you within 24 hours. So it's not one of those companies that you have to put in a trouble ticket and then 6 months from now somebody in their technical department gets back with you. They've been very responsive, and that's important to me because I run a business, and if I have a challenge, I need the challenge addressed. I need the situation addressed. I need the problem fixed, and I'm not much into putting in a ticket and having to go back and forth with somebody in a chat environment to get it fixed. They're very responsive from that standpoint. We've been very happy with that.
absolutely, and I appreciate your your insights and your thoughts. So we definitely strive to be provide that customer experience, right, and make it as easy to implement and answer your questions as we go along. So really appreciate your feedback. With that said, we have some time left for some questions. So I'll go over to the Q&A and start going over some questions. Looks like some of these might have been answered by you, Amit. But we had a question from Cliff. It said, Steve, do you also use outbound calling with Skit.ai? If so, what kind of connection rate are you seeing? So I know, Steve, you're using Skit for outbound, inbound, and SMS. I don't know if you want to share more on, the connection rates you're seeing or the metrics you're seeing from that perspective.
Cliff, I apologize for not having those details at my fingertips. I'm somebody that doesn't, if they don't know the answer, they're not going to blow smoke up your skirt. I do not know. I do not have that metric at my fingertips. I will say this. Most of the phone calls are ending in some type of a left voicemail, left message, or if we're not able, we have the ability and the feature, if we do not want to leave a voicemail, that we can push an SMS, text message out to them, or an email as well. The inbound phone calls that come back in from those communications are very effective. I've got a staff of 5 people that stay busy all day long just taking those inbound phone calls. So I know the connection rate has to be somewhat high. I don't want to put a number on it because I don't know, but I know I have a staff of people here, a department of people here that do nothing but answer those inbound responses all day long. So whether it be a direct connect or a response to a message or a response to an SMS text or a response to an email that we're pushing out through the service, it is quite high because they stay busy all day long. That department is, we have plans for that department to grow into the first quarter of 2025. I wish I had an exact number, but I'm confident that it is a good percentage of the calls are ending in some type of either callback or interaction with the bot for payment, because that department just they stay busy all day long. When they leave, they look like they've been out with a shovel digging ditches. They're just tired mentally from the inbound connections that they've been talking with all day.
Absolutely. And another question from Cliff, and I think Amit, you've kind of answered this, right? But do you offer to send validation notices through email also?
Yeah, I think that's something which I answered. It's something which we have. So email is a email. It's a two-way bot on email, which we have started. I think it's kind of at an early stage, right? I think we are flexible to kind of start from the validation stage itself and be able to kind of leverage email with the cooperation of the agency to kind of use that channel to send validation notices, as well as have the ability to kind of respond to whatever queries or kind of concerns which might get raised back from the customer. So I think that flexibility is there. But as I said, it's a relatively new product, so effectively it's something which we might have to kind of co-build together rather than having it out of the box like SMS or voice bot.
Absolutely. And another question from Paul Allen. So Paul asks, I know when we looked at it previously, the cost to entry was very high. Has it come down over time? I understand Steve has seen a decrease in or dropped in abandoned and inbound calls, but can you share, Steve, what your ROI has been?
Our average spend on that versus the revenue that it generates, probably we're spending somewhere in the ballpark versus return. It's more than 70%. I know that because the cost versus what we're the return that's coming back from the gross revenue that the 5 people in that department are generating more than 100,000. I don't have a calculator on me, but we're not spending even a fraction of that on the cost to generate 20 to 25,000 in fee for those 5 folks that are in that department. So it's 70% or greater. I have not seen it be an ROI challenge. It's an effective tool that we have used to replace. I mean, we send 150 to 200,000 records daily, and how many collectors would I have to have? At $16, $18 an hour. The ROI is through the roof when compared to having an actual staff on board to do that. And the 5 people that we do have handling these calls are generating upwards of $100,000 a month in fee. So,
absolutely. And he had another follow-up question. Did you have an inbound payment IVR prior to getting the bot for you, Steve?
No, for me. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we did not. We use a outside vendor called IC Systems. So we had a portal, but they would interact with that portal in the email notifications that we were sending at verification or validation stages. And we had the ability to push text message or email from the CRM to send them there. But no, the inbound calls were being handled directly by live agents. And then they were having to stop what they're doing and take the payment, no matter if it was a $10 monthly payment, $25 monthly payment, $100 payment, or if it was a $10,000 payment. They don't mind so much taking the $10,000 payment, but they kind of get grouchy when they're having to process $10 and $25, call-in payments. So it's really helped resolve a lot of the smaller, end-use payments without having to go to a live person. Like I said earlier, though, it's no substitution for having a live party available, but it does cut down on the day-to-day mundane, smaller tasks that tie up an agent. Just think of it from this standpoint. If you've got a really strong agent that is having to take these smaller payments, it keeps them from negotiating those bigger deals that are going to put the dollars in your pocket at the end of the month.
Absolutely. Another question, right? So, and this is more for you, Steve, I think. So it says, how are you obtaining consent to call a debtor through Skit?
The my understanding is that the communication is being disseminated as right party contact. So it's not we're not using a device that requires a right party contact. We have the same implementation process in place if a live person was picking up the phone, because this is not a dialer. Am I correct in that, Amit? This is not a dialer product platform. So the compliance part of it is just live party contact.
Right.
As a third party attempt to collect a debt. So we don't have to have consent to use the platform as an outbound calling device.
Right. That's correct. I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything to that portion, the consent.
I think so I think there are two aspects of consent which are required. One is obviously the ATDS part, which I think Steven spoke about. I think the second thing is based on the FCC ruling last year, the consent to kind of call using AI. I think that's also something which ideally you need the TCPA consent language in your kind of being passed on through your creditor. So effectively, it's not like the agency needs to have it, but the creditors need to have it from their end customers to be able to kind of have the consent to kind of get the call. I think my the kind of submission here is and which is something which we kind of recommend to all our agencies is we are technology providers, we are not legal experts, right? So effectively we can probably help you with what some of the agencies which you're working with are doing. But my submission is I think the best practice is before you implement the solution, please do have a word with your internal counsel or with your career counsel, and kind of ensure that all the consents, whether it be TCPA consent or in anything with regard to some of the other regulation agencies, all those things are in place. Because I think that's important. I think we are in an industry where compliance and regulation does play a massive role. I think it's always better to leave it to the experts to kind of figure it out. But I think at any point of time, if any of those, anybody from your legal team wants to have a word and get a better understanding in terms of, where does kind of Skit and the technology kind of fit in, we are happy to kind of jump in and kind of provide you whatever information is needed for you to make the right decision.
Awesome. And last questions, are there multiple languages? So I could probably take some of that answer, right? But definitely English and Spanish are within the platform. And we kind of expand as we go, right? So depending on use cases, volumes, right? If, for example, we start seeing a ton of people speaking French to the bot, then that might be something that we want to tackle as well. But for now, mostly English and Spanish.
Dante, if we do move into a French accent, can we use Pepe Le Pew's?
Well, we'll try to do that. Maybe we could get Amit to speak a little French for us, and we could use his voice as well.
Yeah, that would be ideal. My favorite French dialect was Pepe Le Pew.
Okay. We'll put that on the product roadmap right there.
There you go.
The funny
Awesome.
thing is, we're speaking to a couple of agencies in Canada, so you never know. French
Yeah,
might.
that's a good point. That's a good point. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today, right? We went over a lot on AI, right? How it could revolutionize the collections, increase efficiencies, right? And I hope the audience gained valuable insights as to how we could, optimize our collections operations, right? And really a special thanks to Steve and Amit, right, for sharing their expertise. And also we just look forward to seeing everyone apply these strategies in your organizations, right? And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And we're always glad and happy to help. So thank you again for joining, and I'll end the webinar here.
Yeah, thanks, Dante, for hosting, and great to
Yeah.
meet. Thanks, Steven.
You're welcome, Amit. Thank you, Dante.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Take care.